I learnt more in 3.5 months of venture than 3.5 years of university and
That's
internships.
a big statement.
How do you talk to founders? How do you empathize with them? How do you embrace the imposter syndrome that is a 21-year-old talking to a founder and judging them?
I thought you didn't have imposter syndrome.
Oftentimes, when we miss deals that we then later regretted, it's not necessarily a failure of a process, but a failure of imagination, of what it could be. I went into the history books to figure out who was the most prolific networker ever.
Yep.
There's this old mate called Rockefeller. He had a Rolodex, a physical one, 3x5-inch cards of over 120,000 cards where he wrote down key details. The best venture capital is revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue that comes through a customer. So that's how I've thought about it. I think in Australia there may be a bias towards folks who have experience, which I think is maybe the rational thing as well. But in the US, they're more open to bet on someone who's young, who has a high slope and just has the raw agency and competency to run at something.
Welcome back to Give It a Nudge. Today, we are really privileged, I think, to be meeting a gentleman by the name of Kevin Liu, who has gone the reverse journey of nearly everyone else we've had on this show. And I think everyone's going to really enjoy understanding what that's like inside someone's head. I know I am. And finding out a lot about his new business, which we're going to reveal today for the first time. So, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
So, where do we start? Your history is incredibly impressive. You are now have a new business, which we're going to talk about and actually release the name of today. Mm-hmm. But to frame it up for our audience, why don't we start by give us, and please don't go too far on this, because I asked someone the other day to give me a snapshot of their career and they literally spoke for 26 minutes. You've come from an investment background and sort of gone into entrepreneurship the other way. But before we sort of get into that, give us a quick snapshot of where you came from before you went into VC world. And then we'll get into a bit more detail then.
Sure. The abridged version is that my parents kind of forewent their creative journeys in Asia and China to come to Australia.
Yep.
And they kind of impressed on me that was a really cool thing to do, to create. And for me, I kind of got swept into the cohort at university that was very far away from that creativity. But I had a lot of that when I was younger. Like mom teaching me water painting, dad teaching me like how he used to write in calligraphy. Oh, really? And yeah.
So they're both artistic?
Both artistic, but they gave that up to come here.
Yeah.
And I kind of carried that with me. And at university, classic Asian thing, they're like, go become a doctor, go become a lawyer.
Did they say that to you, or was that just you sort of fell in line with the standard protocols?
There was a bit of both.
Yeah.
There was like, do the family proud and like get into something.
We gave it up. You better not stuff it up kind of thing.
Yeah. And so good Asian son got into commerce and law at University of Sydney.
Yep.
I thought it would be like the TV show Suits. Was nothing like that. And it just took me a while to actually get out of that. And in third year, I finally kind of gave up the law bit of the degree to the dismay of my parents. But I had to do it for myself. I jumped into computer science, and then I found this really interesting space called venture capital.
Yeah.
Super nascent at the time, 2018.
So you found that at uni?
I found that at uni. And venture capital isn't an industry where they hire graduates.
No.
I just got super lucky. I was pitching my first venture capital firm, Reinventure, actually that their portfolio companies could use a bunch of student services, students who wanted to get internships at these portfolio companies. Mm-hmm. I was part of a society, pretty nerdy one, that helped out these computer science folks try to get internships. And I was just pitching them our suite of students.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, maybe consider working here. And it was just the perfect nexus of technology, investing, creativity. And I learnt more in 3.5 months of venture than 3.5 years of university and
That's
internships.
That's a big statement. So, I mean, they say timing and luck is everything. I guess there was a little bit of that in there.
Definitely.
Obviously, you have to execute on that, but I agree. I think timing and luck is everything. Frame that up to me, like in terms of you learnt more in 3.5 months than you do in 3.5 years. I mean, obviously you learnt a lot about the law and some of that, but do you mean from a life experience point of view? I mean, because from a factual point of view, you would have learned more, but perhaps you weren't able to use that in your day-to-day life. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, like you learn a lot about theory, you learn about how concepts fit together in law and commerce and in computer science, but actually like how do things work day to day?
Yeah.
How to manage customer crises when like some app has downtime? How do you talk to founders? How do you empathize with them? How do you like embrace the imposter syndrome that is a 21-year-old talking to a founder and judging them?
I thought you didn't have imposter syndrome at 21. Don't you know everything at 21? You just think you know the whole lot. I thought that doesn't come to you as you get a bit older. You mentioned creativity. You said perfect match of the technology and investing and creativity. Explain to me how you see the creativity in venture capital.
I mean, you see it through founders. You see it through them challenging the status quo. You see it through them creating products that haven't been out there before and just testing the limits. You also see that in the way that venture capitalists may approach thinking about deals and investments.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, when we miss deals that we then later regretted, it's not necessarily a failure of a process, but a failure of imagination of what it could be, and that's really hard.
Yeah, I mean everyone has their regrets in hindsight. What about so you were there 3.5 months, right? Did you go straight? And from there on, did you go to AirTree? Was that right?
No, so I was at Reinventure for 2 years. So that's the corporate venture arm of Westpac. And then COVID hit, and I was super fortunate. Simon Kant, the managing director at Reinventure at the time, knew Craig Blair, and just passed me through.
That's another bit of luck and timing for sure.
Yeah, count my lucky stars. Like very fortunate.
So they're two different funds, right? You've got Westpac, which is a corporate, which is essentially trying to make sure they don't get destroyed by keeping an eye on the venture world, right? And having another asset to invest in. Whereas AirTree is, one of the purest forms of VC, in terms of the first ones that really had success, then Blackbird and so forth. Did you find that the way they assessed and analyzed deals was quite different?
Absolutely. Yeah. To be clear, with a single investor being Westpac, Reinventure was very much limited in terms of its scope around what they could invest in, though we oftentimes stretched the definition of fintech, often to the dismay of Westpac. But that's one of the best performing funds in Australia.
And the idea of that was that they would eventually buy them themselves, right, and incorporate them into the fund, or was it more to actually get a return?
So there's that, yes. It's twofold. One, when you have a company startup that wins an enterprise contract, the valuation arbitrage is massive. And so if you can really win Westpac to help them with anything from mortgage origination to, AML and fraud detection, that's a massive client. And then that gives the startup the ability to go then win other credible banks.
Absolutely.
And that creates a bit of a multiple valuation arbitrage for us. And so that probably is the bigger driver.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting corporate venture setup where it wasn't sat within the bank. It was off balance sheet. Whereas say ANZ and CBA, they have their corporate venture arms within the bank and on balance sheet.
They're very intertwined. They're almost like working in the bank, really.
Yeah, so separate structure. Whereas in AirTree, you have like full gamut that you can invest in. We mainly did software. We dabbled in hardware. Felt that was
too expensive,
sometimes difficult and expensive, taking a lot of risk, which is a whole other topic. But every partner there had operating experience, which I thought was fantastic because you have that founder empathy, and then you know how to speak to them in their language. But yeah, just going from at times at AirTree, looking at soil carbon sequestration to stable coins, absolute whiplash. But the team could do that.
Yeah.
Very different in terms of, I guess, just scope. But I think the core things around investing were more or less similar, like high margins, high recurring revenue, scalability, defensibility.
Yeah.
Those things.
You sat on some pretty impressive boards at AirTree. I was going to bring up imposter syndrome now, and you already brought it up earlier. But you would have been older, but still very young. You made some very astute investments through AirTree. I think if you go back and we can talk about some of them, I think we probably should talk about some of the more successful ones, like a Go One, for example, phenomenal investment. How did you feel about that? I mean, here you are in this career, still really young, under 30, investing in some of the most successful tech businesses Australia's had, sitting on boards. You've had this hiccup with COVID that's actually ended up working out even better for you. How are you feeling at this stage in your career?
How am I feeling at this stage in my career? I mean, I feel blessed for just having those experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, in the moment, your head's down and you just want to help the founder, and there is not as much imposter syndrome. You just want to provide value where you can and get it done, and not be a pest on asking them a million questions. But how am I feeling? Absolutely blessed. 6 years of venture, working with the top investors, operators, founders in APAC, and also being able to develop the relationships that I have had with engineers, other venture capitalists, and founders. It's absolute blessing. And then there's also a level of, at the moment, the world could go in any direction
right now.
Just the volatility.
It's chaos now.
So I guess I got a bit of that through, in 2020, 2021, there's just massive hype of venture investment pouring.
It went bananas.
It went nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Did you find it hard though? Because you've gone from Westpac to AirTree, COVID's in. So there's not a lot of human contact, right? And a lot of investing, I would imagine, is learning from your other colleagues, your more senior colleagues. Like, they've been operators, they've invested for ages, and you're learning your own gut feel as well as your standard processes of investing. But you're not sitting in a big team with people, because that wasn't the way the world was. The glutton of money was ridiculous. I mean, I remember we started Nudge around that time, and Nudge was exploding, and we were getting the strangest companies going, yeah, we just got funded. And we're like, really? And they're wanting to hire all these people. And there was a lot of money flowing everywhere, right? It was chaos.
Yeah.
But you would have been isolated to some degree. I imagine there'd been quite a bit of working at home during that time.
Yeah, I mean, isolated and very connected through LinkedIn and Twitter, and just
was it all just
email inbound that just barrages you?
Yeah. And I guess a lot of calls with founders.
Yes.
How many were you seeing during that time? Because I don't think we'll ever see a time like that again. Well, maybe at some stage, but probably not in the next 10 years. It was quite extraordinary.
I think, okay, so to give you a little bit behind the scenes at AirTree, we see 2,500 deals roughly a year.
Yeah.
That number definitely crept up. When I started at AirTree, it was an investment team of 12. By the time I left, mid-2024, it was a team of 45. It went from 67 portfolio companies to 118, and I think 500 mil to 2 bill roughly in AUM. And just in that span of time as well, the amount of companies that hit that 100 mil valuation mark rose exponentially, and probably more in that 5 years than the prior 20 years.
Yep, that's crazy.
So I mean, there was just a lot, but and it was only an investment team of it went from 8 to 12. It was a lot to go through.
There's a
lot of biases that we at times had to unwind to make sure that we're giving each founder and startup enough attention and love to see whether it was good or not. But I think one of the secrets, I guess, of venture is that it's often a not yet as opposed to a no forever. I think one of the things I had to learn maybe the hard way in venture when it comes to assessing these things, I was pretty numbers driven for someone who also believes that they're relatively creative. The people aspect, I had to learn over time. At the end of the day, it's about the founders. They can have these amazing metrics, but the founders are the core of the business, and the people around them that they build, that team is really the core of the business. It took me a while to realize that, and to pick up and ask the right questions to figure out.
Give me some examples of some of the right questions, because I'm always intrigued as to how venture view. As a recruiter, obviously, I have lots of ways that I assess people. It's been my life, right?
Yeah.
Every business I've ever done has been a people business, and for me, a lot of it is gut feel, which is probably not what anyone wants to hear. But with you, obviously, it's a much more scientific process in terms of venture anyway. But when you are assessing people, I think there's a lot of frustration out there from founders who feel that they get that not yet answer, and they don't understand why. And obviously you can't go back to 2000 with a lot of detail because you just don't have the time, just like we can't go back to every candidate and explain why we're not taking them forward. So I certainly understand that. So I guess give me some examples of questions that you would – I'm not asking you to give me questions and answers like a cheat sheet. That's not what I want to know. I guess I'm intrigued to know how you guys view it. What sort of things do you ask? Is it situational kind of questions, what you're going to do, or is it knowing your numbers, or what are the important things? Not all of them, just a couple of examples.
I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this afterwards as well. But for me, we had this founder hierarchy that we had just mulled on over the years around why are they actually in this? Like, why are they doing the startup that they're doing? At the base level, you have folks doing it because of prestige, doing it because maybe
prestige,
they see.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, status. And the level above, you may have folks who see an outcome and just want to chase it. And like, it's like the thing to do.
Yep.
The level above, you have mercenary, just really competitive folks who want to build something big, and they're not necessarily attached to the problem, but you know that they're going to go pretty far with it, but you don't know whether they'll stick with it or not. And then at the real top tier founders, chip on the shoulder about the thing they're trying to solve.
Is that right?
Like, you probably heard this a lot of times, but Melanie Perkins with Canva, like she hated Adobe, wanted to go fix it, went to fix it and fixed it. Same thing with the Go One founders, like they had just like wanted post-tertiary education to be better, had that chip on the shoulder, wanted to go fixed it.
It's interesting. You wouldn't think chip on the shoulder would be seen as your number one.
Yeah, maybe it's not exactly.
But I know.
You know what I mean?
I think it's a good way of describing it. I think it is. I don't think it's a negative thing having a chip on your shoulder. I mean, it depends what you do with that chip.
Yeah. How big is that?
But
chip?
I think you could say it as an itch they can't stop scratching. Same sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's what's going to keep driving that person even when it seems hopeless.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately what it takes, right?
Yeah.
And it does seem hopeless. It always comes along. The hopeless moments keep coming. So I guess you have to have someone who gets through them. So. You were at AirTree for how long? A long time. 6 years? Was it longer?
4 years.
4 years.
I was on sabbatical for a year, so that was like part-time, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. In that time, you learned a lot. What do you think was the key thing that you took away that made you want to become a founder? Because it's very unusual to have someone go from investor to founder. We have another podcast that we filmed someone else, which is all about founders going to investors and how hard that transition is, because it's completely different, right? And as someone who's founded a lot of businesses, I'm not a great investor. I'm happy to admit that. And you have to go and learn that. And, you know, we've had people talk about how they go and hang out with investors and spend long times trying to understand how to invest, because it's nothing like being an operator. It's great understanding that role. What do you think you learned as an investor that gave you the confidence to go and become a founder? Because you would have seen all the hard stuff, right? It was opposed to the other way around. You would have literally seen hundreds and hundreds of people desperate to get money, running out of cash flow, going through the crisis, having the chip on the shoulder. And do you have the chip on the shoulder? We'll come to that at the end. But what do you think you learnt most that persuaded you it was a good idea? Because when you really look at it externally, it doesn't look like a good idea. It looks pretty awful.
Yeah, honestly, like the odds can be not in your favor at all.
Definitely not.
As a founder. Well, let me go back to prior to even university.
Okay.
I was the one weird kid in year 12 English when we were given the chance to write about utopia or dystopia. I wrote about utopia, like 1 out of 218.
Really?
I was like, why did no one else write about a better world?
That's extraordinary, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it bugs. I don't know why to this day, but that was like
a dark class you were with.
Just to be lawyers and doctors. But I'd always wanted to build something.
Yeah.
Like it was in me to like, I love working with my hands. I love like moving pixels around. Like I love, and I had an investment banking internship, and it was making slides. I thought I was going to learn investing there, but I was just making beautiful slides. I was like, it's not that bad.
Intentionally, yeah, they're the best.
But sorry, like I joined venture with intention to optimize my learning from the best founders, the best builders. I didn't join venture to necessarily become the best investor, a partner at a fund. I think that that was a role that was a path I could have taken. But for me, the initial intention was just I want to be next to the best founders and see how they act in boards, how they make product decisions. And I actually even had a founding experience when I was like just starting out at Reinventure. There was this, do you know conveyancing?
Yeah.
So conveyancing.
Couldn't get away from law, huh? Couldn't get away from law.
It was one of the first internships I had. It was like a super fragmented, low NPS market. I thought there was an aggregation play there.
Yes.
And so I went ahead with 5 of my good friends at uni to try build a conveyancing marketplace.
Right.
And we were maybe 4 months in. I was still working at Reinventure at the time, doing this after hours. And then CBA came in one day with a pitch deck that they had been incubating the same thing. And what hit me was like, okay, is my life mission going to be a conveyancing marketplace?
That's a pretty easy question, I would hope. But yeah, that's a scary question. You're not going to say yes to that. I don't think many people. Someone might say yes to that.
Someone might say yes to that, but like it wasn't. So I was like, okay, from then on, whatever I go build, it has to have founder market fit. It has to be something that I care about. And venture for me was a way to explore many of these different industries, whether it be design with Canva, design crowd, or product-led growth apps like Linktree, or even education, which I have a deep passion about with Go One and a Cloud Guru and a bunch of them. And I guess what gave me the confidence is that the problem that I'm trying to solve is still bugged me at night. It kept me up.
Yeah.
And it didn't come to me at one time. It was a slow hunch.
It just didn't go away.
Yep. And I think when something bugs you for that long and you know the risks of going in to do it, but you still have to scratch that itch anyway, it was a sign. And
I'd agree with that. 100%.
Going into a bit of the cliche of the regret minimization framework that Bezos has, I just felt that if I didn't go try build it in this time where like your engineering costs are way down and you can really distribute your product globally much easier than before, I would kick myself.
Fair enough. So you went into venture almost like the ultimate internship to learn, not to become an investor. Whereas a lot of people would, if they would feel that if they got into a VC like an AirTree, they'd go, "Done. This was it. This was my life job that I wanted to have, and now I've got it." But you actually saw that as just a stepping stone to something else in the learning, which is really interesting. Maybe that's why it came your way, as opposed to other people who want to get there as a goal. You actually saw it as a stepping stone. Maybe it's part of the reason that the serendipity fell your way. Well, let's talk about your business, because obviously we spoke about it, 3 weeks ago now, and it blew me away. As I told you at the time. Hence, we're here now. And you've got it on your LinkedIn as Stealth. Are we going to talk about the name today? Are we going to keep the name under wraps? Or do you just want to sort of give me an overview, or give our viewers an overview of what this itch that you wanted to scratch now is and where you're up to with it? Because I think it's pretty bloody impressive. And you showed me the model of it and all that kind of, I'm super excited. So
thank you.
Let's talk about it.
It means a lot coming from you, like as a people person.
As a podcast host.
Come
on, let's get into it. I'm dying to hear it again.
Okay, so the name is Atrium.
You know what? We were going to do the launch in the Atrium room in the Pillars, weren't we? Is that what we're still going to do? Because we've got the room. Remember, we talked about that. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Yeah. Carry on. The name is Atrium,
and the intention is to be the place where. Well, Atrium is an architectural concept in one of its definitions, where it's the space that breathes light into a building and connects all the rooms. Why this is important in terms of the thing that I'm building is that I found during my time in venture, I needed a place really that connected all my relationships to one place and my communications into one place. And I'm really solving for my own pain, which after talking to a whole host of folks, they also have.
My pain as well, very much.
Okay. So venture is two things. It's a relationships business, and it's also being very just passionate about building businesses itself. On the former point, at AirTree, we had 38,000 contacts across 12 investors in our 2 CRMs. It was just chaos.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. And then like 8 communication channels.
Yeah,
Slack,
which is awesome,
WhatsApp.
isn't it? I love
It's
it.
fantastic. Yeah, just context switching out the wazoo. It's amazing. And I had this itch to just bring everything together so that I could actually see who's in my network. Like I couldn't tell you how many founders were in my network, how many engineers I talked to, how many investors I talked to overseas. I came out of AirTree just with the hunch to build a personal CRM that works for the modern day person who cares about relationships, who cares about building the network. And that evolved to being something that also combines with your inbox, because like relationships are obviously core to your network, but communication is how you actually bring everything together. And a lot of personal CRMs out there have not worked because they didn't really link with the inbox side of things.
They don't link well, typically.
They don't link well. And I wanted something to help me stay sharp with everyone that I had interacted with and help me organize my relationships across different categories. Something that would help me with a pre-meeting note to at least give me a face card of the person I'm meeting alongside, what has happened in their company, in their career over the last 50, 60 days. But the story that really kind of inspired a whole bunch of this is I went into the history books to figure out who was the most prolific networker ever.
Yep.
There's this old mate called Rockefeller. He had a Rolodex, a physical one, 3 by 5 inch cards of over 120,000 cards where he wrote down key details. You can see the ones actually with Nelson Mandela.
120,000. I had a Rolodex, unfortunately.
Oh,
I did.
Okay. Cool, yeah.
That probably tells people too much around how long I've been around. It did not have 120,000 cards though. That's wild.
I suspected it was actually handed through the generation, so that's maybe how they got to it. But he was meticulous about writing key details down on these cards, names of children, favorite teams, last contact, key things like I really cared about, and it just got me thinking: where's the modern version of this that just makes it easy for me to see who I know, take down details. Have these details be recalled when they need to be, when I need to make an introduction.
Across all the channels.
But at the moment, starting with, I guess, inbox and or Gmail and calendar, because they're the most telling of who's actually engaged with you. And that story of Rockefeller really kind of planted the seed for me. Like, I want to build the modern version of this, because I think as AI commoditizes a bit of intelligence and there's so much slop out there and noise out there, what becomes maybe more important are relationships, your network.
So in essence, right now, and I know that ultimately this platform is going to sit across Slack, it's going to sit across everything, right? But right now, what it's doing is it's looking at your emails, it's looking at your calendar, and nothing ever looks at your calendar. And your calendar is actually probably the most telling platform out there, because exactly who you met, how long you met them, how long ago you met them, usually some sort of detail, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's video. There's so much information in people's calendars that is not captured by anything. And then it summarizes that for you. So if for example, I knew you were coming in today. Obviously, we only arranged this 2 weeks ago. Not too hard to remember, although it's getting harder for me these days. But if we'd arranged that 4 months ago, I might have gone, who's this guy? And it would essentially just look at, you met him on this date and you talked about this. And it just does it like that, right?
Exactly.
And then once that gets rolled out across Slack and everything else that we have and WhatsApp and all that, then it will be able to summarize all of that for you. And so if I have a conversation with you on WhatsApp, I also speak to you on Slack about something else, and I've got you in my calendar, I've got my email, it will be able to show me all of that in an instant without me having to do anything. Is that essentially it?
That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's going to be wild. Like, for someone like me who meets so many people across lots of different businesses, it's always like, oh, what's that person? And often I'll deal with them in all the businesses as well. Then you've got to remember, why am I talking to them? Am I talking about pillars? Am I talking about nudge? Am I talking about? So I think that kind of thing, it's like a personal assistant, but it's automated, essentially.
I think you hit on something there with a personal assistant. I went down a path of looking at kind of the evolutions of personal assistants, and the role that still is relatively ambiguous today. It's a chief of staff role.
Yep.
Um,
So ambiguous. Can
So
mean
ambiguous.
anything. Can mean anything. I love getting those roles. They can pay 60 grand or they can pay 300.
yeah. But when I looked through the history books of like what they really were, they were first kind of coined in the White House, and you could be a chief of staff for the president. And what they did was they would help you defend your time, gatekeep your attention, help you actually prioritize, and give you like the 5 bullet points of the things that you needed to address, but with the understanding of a professional context. And I think when you have communication data, calendar data, and an understanding of someone's network graph and their CRM, effectively, the Rolodex, you can have a personal chief of staff with Atrium.
Yeah. And that's what it is.
That's what we're going for.
And how far in are we?
It's early days. It's effectively 4 months full time of work so far, but we've got a V1 that's we're going to release.
Which you showed me.
Which I showed you. Functional inbox, enriched term, Rolodex that we're going to roll out to a specific few early beta users. But watch this space.
Tell me, you prepared for this for your whole life to become this founder, or other than your little convincing hit out. How has that felt the first 4 months? Making that, really leaving the world properly and like you said, 100% in.
I love that question. I found myself pinching myself the other day, just walking around with my little brother. I'm working on this with my little brother, and
that's cool.
Like a little bit personal, but our parents were split, so I didn't really get to see him much when I was younger. And now to be able to work with him on something, almost feels like a little bit of a dream. And it's been incredible just being able to sit side by side with him, going through pixel by pixel how to design the most delightful experience for our users.
Word. Delightful. It's such a good word. I want to talk more about this because I think this is fascinating. The fact that you called me a pinch me moment, I love that. I think I've done lots of things in my life, and I've had a lot of pinch me moments, and sometimes you don't recognize them.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that you do recognize them, because I think most people have a traditional view of what a job is. You go in at this time, you go at that time, you get paid X amount of money and so forth. When you're out there building things and when you're out there creating things and you have complete control of your own time, one, that's a scary, dangerous thing because you've got to make sure you don't stuff it up. But two, there are moments where you just kind of go, hold on, am I actually working or am I not working? And a lot of the time it feels like you're working, like really working, like when it's 9 o'clock at night and you're starting something and you know it's going to go till 2. But there are other moments where you are doing things and it doesn't feel like work at all. Now, that unfortunately is never going to be all the time. But I think founders particularly, and you would probably have seen this in your role at AirTree, they don't recognize that moment. And I think it's so important that founders do that, because for their mental health and just for their own soul, right? Because otherwise you just feel like you're grinding all the time. You're always pushing. You've just got to take, doesn't have to be a long time. We're talking 20 seconds of just recognizing those pinch me moments. Oh, I love the fact that you said that. Now you're only 4 months in and there's a whole bunch of awful stuff to come, which I'm sure you're aware of. But
the value of
I just love the fact that you gave that answer. All right, I've got the obvious question.
Yes.
Which all our viewers will want to know, so I have to ask it. Do you feel that you're going to find it easier to raise money, or are you not going to raise money and bootstrap it? Because of obviously your connections and contacts and understanding what VCs look for and all that deep understanding. You have such a deep understanding of venture capital that most founders have none. You have a lot of friends in venture capital where most founders have none. So do you think it will be easier for you? But also, do you want to raise money, or are you going to bootstrap it all?
I think there's also a question of, do I want it to be easier for me?
Well, sometimes easy is not always good, right? That's proven. It's like, the companies that raise a lot of money early often don't go so great. So yes, but you understand that as well. So you're in a very unique position. So I'm interested to see how you feel about that.
Well, I'm very lucky to have had the venture capital experience I've had, and then to be also raising from a bunch of the VCs that I've worked with. There's definitely a question of how much. Because you see rounds now that feel like they're from 2021. It feels insane.
Yes, there are a few more popping up.
Yes, there's a few more popping up. And it can be easy on the founder side to say, let's just go raise as much as possible and attack this idea. Maybe I was thinking from my venture hat, but I do think that constraints creates value, and
Creativity, maybe.
yes, creativity under constraints can create sustainable value.
Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't go out to raise a massive round, I think, but I did want to raise one given the space that we're in and the product that I wanted to build. It requires a bit of that. And for me, it's so different: Australia, US, Europe. Different worlds. And I think it's so easy at the moment to be caught up in like the massive rounds that they are. There's my venture mates may not like me saying this, but it's a trade-off.
Interesting.
It's a trade-off. You raising funds is a permanent trade on the equity of your company, right? And now you can do a less permanent trade, which is debt or other things, but it's a permanent trade. And just because you've raised also doesn't mean you have a real business. Like, you need customers.
Of course it does. It means it's valued at whatever.
Yeah.
I know it's madness.
Yeah. The best venture capital is revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue that comes through your customer. So that's how I've thought about it. It's that it's a trade-off. I'll celebrate it a little bit because it shows that, of course, folks believe in the idea and believe in me. But until we have real customers and providing real value,
they believe in you. Like you said, it's the founder. VCs, they look at the founder. Of course, they look at the idea, but they do look at the founder. So I've always found this interesting. I've never been able to decide what's better. And I'll tell you where my head is. I agree with you. I think that constraints do create creativity. I think if you do not have an unlimited amount of money, you have to make things work in different ways. You have to come up with unusual ways. You are thinking about it from a more sort of longevity. There is a runway that does end, all those kinds of things. But at the same time, when you do have constant runways, you're constantly raising.
Yep.
And that takes an enormous amount of effort and it's a big distraction. Whereas if you do go and raise a big chunk, then you can forget about raising and go and work. So which one's better? I don't know. It's a tough argument.
Yeah. I mean, it's really context dependent on your business as well. Like, you can be doing a deep tech business where you're creating a medical device and you need that CapEx to go further. Or you can be doing something in the product-led growth side where the product is so good it markets itself and you don't need to have growth equity or venture capital to continue funding the growth. So it just really depends on the case. And for me, I prefer the latter model where I don't need to trade off more equity and just have a beautiful product that can market itself. And you can kind of see that in some ways. I don't think Canva needed to raise as much as it did, but it did.
They just keep raising.
It's
insane. They just keep raising.
But like that business, if you turn off the marketing tomorrow, it still grow really fast because of the amazing SEO engine and like the growth.
It's gone way past the tipping point now. I mean, it's a household name.
It's a household name. So I think Australia has like probably two big buckets of talent in terms of building tech. One within fintech. So many payments companies out there,
particularly in Australia.
Particularly in Australia. And then the other one in product-led growth companies. Atlassian's one, Canva's one, Linktree's one. And I want to be in that latter camp.
So will you go to the US for your next round? Is that something you talked about it earlier, right? It's a very different market. I think it would be hard to go to the UK. It's not as connected and they think differently, like you said. It's more traditional to go to the US, bigger marketplace, obviously more opportunity. You can't succeed in the US until you've raised in the US. Everybody knows that. US customers won't buy you until they know you're backed by US ventures and all those things. If you want this business to be global, I know you told me that. So have you had any thoughts? It's a big question 4 months in, but because you've got such a unique view, I feel I can ask you.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to go to the US. And I was there for my MBA exchange at Wharton just earlier this year in April.
Yep.
And the level of connectivity there is amazing. For me, that place, 15 times larger market than Australia, has 55% of the world's venture capital.
Which is mad.
And half of that's actually just in like California, in San Francisco itself.
And they're much more open-minded.
Yeah, they are much more willing to take a bet on folks who may not have experience. And I think in Australia, I'm actually curious to get your thoughts on this. Like when it comes to hiring, I think in Australia there may be a bias towards folks who have experience, which I think is maybe the rational thing as well. But in the US, they're more open to bet on someone who's young, who has a high slope and just has the raw agency and competency to run at something.
I think venture capital in the US is what venture capital should be. I think they're risk takers. I think venture capital here was and is going the other way, which is a shame. And I think the people are beginning to realize that, and hopefully they're going to start coming back the other way. Because I think they have. I think that U-turn's happened. I think there was a lot of success with the AirTrees and the Blackbirds. When they started out, and we remember those days. And then they kind of became super conservative, almost protective. And now I think and I hope they're beginning to turn back the other way. They're not just going for boring RegTech customers with enterprise customers, which is, kind of where they were for a while. So I'm hoping we'll see that. From a hiring perspective, do you mean in terms of hiring people for startups or?
Hiring people for startups and then also investing in founders. Like
founders here are older.
Yeah, they have. I agree. They're more. There's a bias towards folks who have more deep domain expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also just more. There's not as many uni students here going and starting up businesses like there are in the US. There's just I don't know why there isn't. Maybe it's the high cost of living. Maybe it's because everyone wants to buy a house and can't do that as a start. I'm not sure why that is, but we don't see. Gosh, I mean, I don't know how many decks or founders we would meet in a week. We've worked with 500 now at Nudge, 500 plus, which in 6 years, which is a lot, right?
Yeah.
I was amazed when we worked that out not long ago. And, there's new ones every month. There's really very few young ones. It's really interesting. Back in COVID, there was a huge glutton of, interestingly, really young female founders.
Awesome. Okay.
And I've seen this at Pillars as well with our Pillars memberships. If you look at our young members that are entrepreneurs, they're nearly all women. So there was that sort of, that just sort of hit out in COVID, which was great. But we just don't see them. I would say the average age is probably around 40, which is super unusual. Okay. But you don't see that in the US. So then from a hiring perspective, 40-year-olds find it very hard to hire 28-year-olds. They have the generational communication issue. There's no generation that's right or wrong. They all look at it differently. So there's that issue. So then you see people in Australia, they're very unimaginative with their hiring. I believe in hiring, you should always hire the left field candidate. If I look back over the 25 years I've done it, most of the best candidates we've replaced were the left field one that we threw in because we felt they would be amazing. Founders used to be more willing to hire them other than corporates, but we're seeing that's becoming less so as well. But I think that's also because it's a candidate-rich market at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. They're just completely different places. But I think you need to, if you want to be global, you need to think global.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
On every front.
On every front. It's hard to hear that there are less younger founders.
And maybe they're not coming to us. Maybe they're not using agencies. Maybe, they're not even coming to us for the content. We've been doing some work with, we've done work with Antler before. We're doing work with Techstars and things like that. There's some younger ones there, but they're still not the uni students. Those would be in their 30s, but there would be still quite a few in their 40s. We don't see many in their 20s at all. I only really thought about that since you just asked me that question. It's actually gotten less and less the last couple of years. We'll have to think about that.
I hope that changes. I do know that it is quite tough to get into a graduate technology role right now.
It is.
A lot of junior hires.
They're not happening.
Just not happening, right?
And they're probably not going to happen here. Look, there's some great programs in the universities. We've been doing a lot of content stuff for UNSW and other places like that. And there's some really amazing entrepreneurship programs in there and entrepreneurs in residence. So maybe we'll see another wave. But yeah, it's definitely gone quiet on the younger founder front.
Yeah. I hope that changes. Like for Australia, right? Like
it needs to
go, from us digging stuff out of the ground to creating.
I do think there's been a push though from more successful founders telling younger founders, go and do 3-4 years in the industry before you start founding. So that message has been consistently coming out for the last 4 or 5 years. So maybe they're taking notice of that and maybe that's what it is. I think there's a huge amount of side hustles that we're not aware of going on.
So many.
Everyone in the world's got one.
Yep.
So hopefully some of them will come through. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I'm excited about this product. If you can get this working the way we talked about, it's going to change my life, which is awesome. I'm going to be super excited to see where you go with it when you really bring it into the market properly. And
You'll be one of the first.
I know. I'm so excited to be a tester. But I'm even more excited just to see and get you back on about how you're finding that founder journey as you go through it, having observed so many others.
Yeah, I'm acutely aware of the valley of death that will happen 6 to 9 months into.
Is that what you call it? That's a pretty grim name. But it's fairly accurate, yeah. Look, I think, I'm keen to keep getting you back on and just sort of document that journey, because I've not met any other one else that's gone straight from investors. I've met people who've been founders, investors, but never someone who's just gone straight founder from investment.
I feel like I'll also be a better investor at a later point, having gone through this journey as well.
Probably, yeah. Do you think you'll end up going back there then? We'll see.
I think the investing DNA part of me, I don't think will ever leave. There was just food, so much food for my curiosity in the investing space. And I could just keep going deep into different areas, which I loved. But there's nothing quite like actually having your product in the hands of a person.
It's a bug. It's a very addictive bug. It has to be, otherwise people wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Kevin, thank you so much.
Thanks,
we're looking forward to watching the journey. And I can't wait to get testing.
Awesome. Yeah, you'll be one of the first to have it.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Cheers, Steve.